Guys, coming to you now from considerably farther south than last time. Now I'm down by Miami. Not quite sure if I'm in Miami proper or not, but this is the courtyard of the hotel or motel that I'm staying at. Apparently, accommodations are a lot more expensive than I had anticipated, which is one of the reasons why I don't like cities. Like, it's really expensive to be here. There's a bunch of fucking Biden voters all over the place. It smells bad. Like, I just walked from here like 2 minutes down the road to go to a diner, and it was like it alternated between human urine, feces, garbage, and like that smell you go into, like when you go into like a shitty party store where they're doing bottle return, like the smell of just like pop bottles that have been sitting around. It's very I don't know why people love cities so much, but anyway, I wanted to make a quick little video about our whole the disease that's been going around, because every time I see a news article, it's like, oh, economic catastrophe due to COVID, or, you know, due to COVID shutdown, due to the, you know, they always try to place the blame squarely on the virus itself instead of who actually caused the problem, which for the most part was Democratic state governors. So the whole 15 days, 14 days to slow the spread thing, that made a lot of sense. But now that we're in some cases hundreds of days into these shutdowns, it really is becoming obvious that both sides of the aisle were, you know, trying to use this for political gain, and it's, as usual, just beating the crap out of the little guy. You know, I mean, there's how many small businesses have been destroyed, how many people are out of work, how many people are poverty stricken. I guess there's an eviction crisis just coming down the way here now, and it's just like, wow, you know, okay, a couple weeks made sense to kind of slow it down until we kind of figured out what we were dealing with, and now it's like, well, the chance of the average person dying is literally less than dying in a fatal car accident. So, you know, on top of that, we're seeing just egregious human rights violations with these mask mandates. There's not a lot of solid evidence that those masks even help. You know, I get the whole, well, there's a lot less droplets coming out of your mouth, but if you're actually infected with it, I mean, people hardly ever wash their hands, even with a pandemic going on. So it's like, you know, the most recent data I saw on it was that I think like 9 hours CoVid, the actual virus itself can survive on skin. So, you know, the whole everybody getting bananas over masks, I think, kind of overlooks the aspect of how touch comes into play, touching objects and touch transference comes into play when, you know, it comes to spreading a disease like this. But the problem is that a lot of the data, I think maybe on purpose, coming out of China made this seem a lot more deadly than it was, and come to find out it's literally 10 to 100 times less fatal. And I know that in some circumstances it maybe could overload hospital systems in certain areas, but it, you know, go check your local hospital, find out if they're overloaded from COVID patients. And, you know, the government officials and the media are very, very quick to give credit to COVID for all of the disaster that took place in the wake of the lockdowns and all that sort of stuff, and you'll, you know, never see them once blame the government for the economic catastrophe and all the civil rights violations that occurred as a result of such, with limited evidence to suggest that those made a difference. And in a lot of states, just off the top of my head, with Michigan as an example, it's like, well, how many old people are dead because our governor sent them to, while they were infected with COVID, sent them into nursing homes? How many people are going to die because they skipped out on elective surgeries? Elective meaning, you know, it's not like a cosmetic procedure. It's like, well, you've got this lymphoma in your leg, you don't need to get it removed now, but if you wait 6 months because the OR is shut down, well, your chances of surviving are pretty low. Kind of like what Bastiat back in the day, or Bastiat talked about back in the day, with the seen versus the unseen. You know, people, especially if they're average, meaning, you know, low IQ, they're going to have a tough time understanding that sort of stuff. So, I mean, it has just been a catastrophe of catastrophes as far as, you know, government overreach is concerned. I mean, did I even mention how many people are going to kill themselves because their business went under or their job's gone? So, again, you know, 14 days to slow the spread made a lot of sense. Now it's literally 99% of people survive. And I understand that there could be, in a small percentage of cases, people that experience long-term side effects from it, but it's like, that's life. You know, for the majority of human history, we haven't lived in this ultra comfortable, technologically sophisticated environment where even the poorest of the poor have, you know, heating, air conditioning, high-speed internet access, arguably limitless entertainment. I mean, it's staggering the degree to which we have been pampered, especially in Western civilization, and it's really starting to show with this pedantic, borderline self-destructive protection from all sorts of suffering. Like, I get it, like, nobody wants people to die, people don't deserve to die from disease, but you have to look at it like, okay, where is there going to be more suffering? From the actual lockdowns, from the civil rights violations, from the financial issues the United States is going to face as a result of the different monetary actions it took in the wake of the COVID crisis, or, you know, a small number of people passing away from the disease itself. And for me personally, I'm kind of worried if there ever is an actual plague, you know, say the death rate's comparable to something like the Black Death, where 1 in 3 people die. You know, that's what, 30 times higher, 30 to 300 times higher than the COVID death rate. So if something like that were to happen, I very much fear for the stability of the world at this point, just because those of us in the West have lived a very, very pampered existence most of the time. Well, I'd say for at least the last 100 years, if you look at, like, say, infant mortality as a measure of how luxurious or sophisticated your society is. And that's great, that's fantastic, but it seems to have led to a point where, you know, people are afraid to let their kids go bicycling without all sorts of gear on, which translates into a generation or two down the line. You know, now, okay, there's a super transmissible cold, basically, is what it amounts to, that kills, you know, less than 1% of people it infects. Let's lock down the, you know, entire economy, to the extent that that's even legal. So just keep in mind that COVID did nothing but exist. The catastrophes, the shutdowns, the job loss, all the problems that are coming from it are 100% the creation of the government, along with its, depending on which faction you support, you know, its partner in crime, the mainstream media. So just keep that in mind anytime that you see a news article that says, oh, well, you know, XYZ happened because of COVID shutdown or because of the COVID pandemic. No. Everything that's happened to us as a result of COVID is really a result of hellacious government mismanagement, which, as a proponent of small government, comes to no surprise. Just so keep that in mind. You know, the media, a lot of what they're able to do insofar as tricking people into believing whatever kind of reality you fall into comes down to controlling the frame of the issue at hand, and they do that very well with coverage of the COVID crisis, so to speak. So thank you.